So it's finally time for this tale of misery and woe to come to an end. Just have one final leg of our journey to get through, and as such, well, I decided to take a few extra precautions to make the trip a little bit safer. First and foremost, I went ahead and idled up to 22 hours, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds to get the final timed item, the uber weapon known as Roger's Staff. Now, I know a board is not, aesthetically amazing, but what it lacks in looks, it more than makes up for in sheer stats. This is probably the best caster weapon in the game, because it gives you a whopping 99 end and 99 mind. Now, Vitality and Piety might also be nice, but I think it'll carry Koudelka through the rest of the game just fine. Also, I managed to get a few upgraded armor pieces, and I got a caster armor piece for Koudelka here. Otherwise, though, I think we should be good to go and head off to the nearby sanctuary behind the chapel. Yeah, so through some magic or other, by defeating the apostle, the gate that was there previously should now be gone.
This must be the temple.
There's no way! If I put a bullet through it, it wouldn't budge. What are we gonna do?
How ironic to have made it this far and not have access to the temple.
Koudelka, Edward, you both must go now. It is my friend that is apparently responsible for this disturbance, and therefore I am partially responsible for this trouble. I have no intention of asking for your sympathy, and I'm in no position to plead for your help. So from this point forward, I can manage on my own.
Don't kid yourself. We didn't come along just for your sake.
No, Koudelka, you should go back now. It'll be far too dangerous.
Edward, you're the one who should go home. You were not meant for this world. Granted, you are a good fighter, having had plenty of experience, and I won't deny the fact that you have the killer instinct either. But when all is said and done, you are an average Joe. I am not. I was meant to exist in this realm. It's the only place I can carve out an existence for myself.
Quit lecturing me! I want no part of a lukewarm existence filled with regret. No. My way is to not worry about consequences, and to do whatever it is I want to do. Chance means nothing to me. Life's a gamble, and once you place your bet, you'd better play to win, or else you end up dead.
Edward, you really are ridiculous.
That's what they tell me.
Do as you like.
That I will.
Oh, suddenly when you feel like it, you decide when you can and cannot open doors?
Wait, there's a way. Remember when we were searching Patrick's mansion? There was various chemicals around. It may take some time, but I think I can combine the chemicals to make nitroglycerin.
Nitroglycerin?
That's great! We're talking powerful explosives here.
For this door, I think we'll need a full flask. Indeed, if I drop the flask before I return, I'll be knocking on heaven's door in a flash.
I go, and it is done. The bell invites me.
Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or hell.
Yeah, we are so close and yet so very far away from our end goal here. The only thing that separates us from getting into the sanctuary is a very, very sturdy door. But at least James does have some ideas about how we can get through here, though they do sound pretty dangerous. The good thing is we did manage to already pick up one piece of this puzzle to unlocking the door. And that was that empty bottle back in Patrick's laboratory. And in fact, on the bottle itself, we can get yet another hint as to where we need to go next. You might recall so very long ago, there was a place that we could get acid. And though it is a little bit of a journey, we do need to head all the way back down into the depths of the dungeon. Yeah, you might recall this very large vat of acid that we stumbled across, I think back in the second or third video, and it finally does have a use now. Overall, though, I'm not really sure how I feel about this little bit of backtracking. It seems pretty arbitrary, but I guess they did need to pad out the game just a little bit. With that acid in hand, though, we can now head back to Patrick's laboratory and finish up to get that nitroglycerin.
I'm going to begin my work. Can you two wait for me here?
And then, what happened to the girl Melanie?
She was gone the next morning. She left with practically everything in the room.
You don't have much luck with women, do you?
Well, you know what they say. The cleanest breakup is when a woman runs out on you.
What else is her statement? Oh, but you're lucky. I mean, to have so many people to kid around with. For me, I'm all alone. I've been all alone all my life.
What about your childhood?
Yes, I did have a childhood. I was born in a small town in Wales, right off the banks of the Taliesin River. It was a small gypsy town.
Gypsy?
That's right, gypsy. And we didn't call ourselves gypsy. We called ourselves Rom. See, a true gypsy is born under the blue sky and is destined to die under the same blue sky. It's gypsy law.
So then I guess you plan on dying underneath the blue skies.
Every gypsy is given a name at birth. My given name was Slato.
Slato? Mm-hmm. It's got a strange resonance to that name. What does it mean?
I can't tell you.
That too must be part of the law.
The law it is.
You know, ever since I met you, enigmatic, mysterious glint in your eyes. Man, it must be the gypsy in you. A glance from thy soul-searching eye can raise with hope, depress with fear.
Byron again?
Yeah.
You must really like him, don't you?
Yes. So I feel as though we're birds of a feather.
Then he must be self-obsessed as well.
I'd rather be classified as a romantic. My father was a strict man and couldn't forgive his son for failing academically. He blamed my failure on the time I wasted inventing adventures, dreaming of a utopian landscape. I was brought up to believe that dreams, the power of the imagination, as well as all the things I loved as a child, were useless, a complete waste of time. It was as if he was telling me I was useless. And then again, it may be just that. You know, I think I was probably born too late. By the time I was 15, everything there was to be done had already been done. The Western territories were colonized. The jungles had been explored. There was no wilderness for me to wander into. No jungles for me to cut my way through. I guess that's how I ended up roaming the country. Well, granted, I picked a few fights along the way, played with fire, gambled on my life a few times. But none of that comes close to the truth I'm searching for. I yearn for something far greater. I can't quite explain myself. but it's as though I'm on a quest for some intangible treasure of sorts. Koudelka, I envy you. You have psychic powers that few are blessed with. Being born a gypsy, you can choose to live how you wish.
And who gave you the right to act as if you figured me out? Do you have any idea how I was raised? You make me laugh. Adventures. Please, you haven't the slightest clue. Do you have any idea how much pain my psychic powers have brought me? My father died when I was only a child. I predicted the exact time, place, and ending of my father's life. Imagine that, predicting your own father's death. I was cursed as a child, being given powers not meant for a child. And my mother? Oh, she was so frightened and so full of hatred for me. She tried to kill me with her very hands. The gypsy elders got together and decided to excommunicate me. I was only 9 then. Do you have any idea how a 9-year-old child survives without the help of a living soul? Treasures, you must be joking. Have you ever cried and begged for your next meal? Did you ever sell your body, seeking shelter from the frigid night air? I used to be just like Charlotte. When she cried and said, "No one has ever loved me." Oh, her words cut straight through me. It was me she was talking about. Just like her, I wish that everybody would die and harbored a hatred for all mankind. But you see, Charlotte has made her peace and gone to heaven. Me, I'm still alive and still all alone. No one has ever lent a helping hand. No one.
Koudelka, you?
I am not as free as you make me out to be. I am a poor, dirty, ignorant woman who threw her gypsy pride to the dogs in order to live. But you see, even someone like me can do good. Because with my powers, I can help ease the pain of others. That's when I feel good about living. I don't need to be loved. I just want my life to have some meaning. And just want someone to tell me they need me. You. No way will you ever understand.
And with our newly procured explosives, we should now be able to make our way into the chapel sanctuary. And, more importantly, we did finally get some information regarding Koudelka's backstory. Seems she's led a pretty awful life all in all. And I guess that does explain why she's been so aloof, distant, almost scornful throughout the entire stretch of the game. And it's good to know underneath all of that, she does have a truly altruistic side, that she just wants to do good, she wants to help people. She wants to make everything alright, considering that her life really hasn't gone all right. And hopefully by putting an end to this nightmare, we might be able to rectify some of that negativity. It's just, well, we do have to still deal with some random enemy encounters, though at this point in the game, we are a little bit overpowered for just everyday random enemies at this point. It's not to say, though, that the game will be a cakewalk. But yeah, let's cross our fingers and hope for the best. And that was certainly effective, though I kind of question whether it was really that safe to be carrying that stuff around. Still, let's go into the sanctuary.
It's amazing.
And we are greeted by a truly awe-inspiring scene of this very towering monstrosity. Especially liked in that quick cutscene there that you could see the intermixing of animal sacrifices and human sacrifices and the sheer amount of blood and torment that went into making this massive tree of hate and torment. Yeah, it just seems to stretch on and on, though rather curiously it does seem to have stopped entirely moving. Is indeed very curious, though. I think what we were really looking for in here is not only the tree, but also that aforementioned cauldron. And while it isn't initially available to us, there is this central coffin here that is fairly interesting. Especially after examining it, we can see that does appear that it can be moved. Now, as to how we are going to move this is pretty easy to answer as long as you do take a quick look around, because, well, you might notice there does appear to be a small little upper alcove here in the sanctuary. To draw our attention even more to it, it does seem that there is a flickering source of light adjacent to a very, very large pipe organ. And this is going to be our key to moving that casket. Now, a long time ago, you might remember an old letter that we picked up that was pretty short, but it did have some capitalized words in it, and it just so happens that that is going to be the code we need to move the casket. Now you can read the letter whenever you want, but in order, we need to do secret, pain, people, and finally light. The game is good to make it abundantly clear whenever you are successful with this puzzle. I also do find it a bit interesting that I think the runes that we ended up pressing to open up the casket down here were also runes that were on the little female statues out in the courtyard. I'm not sure if maybe you could use that to piece together this puzzle in case you did, I guess, manage to not pick up the old letter out of the teddy bear. But I guess there are quite a few options. I mean, I think you could even go to the upside down head with all the organs, and you could probably get a clue from down there as well. But yeah, you saw there, Koudelka, pretty much a glass cannon at this point, to a very extreme measure, which is why I do want to make sure and pump up her vitality. She had been coasting by for quite some time with the armor we had given her. It's just I thought that maybe giving her caster armor would make her a little bit more viable damage-wise. But yeah, now that the casket is out of the way, we can now safely head downstairs into the bottom area of the sanctuary.
Patrick. Poor Patrick.
Hey, what are you doing? What's that? No, don't!
I'm not asking for your help. This is my problem. None of you need to die with me here.
And here we are, finally at the Cauldron of Life. And if you were having any questions regarding where Patrick was, considering that he was the maestro of all this horrifying terror, well, it seems that his creation finally consumed him. In fact, it seems to have sucked the very life out of his body. For now, though, as James has set up the, catalyst for the end of this horrifying nightmare, all that's left up to us is to throw in Daniel's arm and start this party right.
Are you sure? Let's proceed. Saint Daniel Scotius, protect us from these evil spirits and grant us inner strength. Amen. Thou, who were created and born out of dust, now go quietly and return to thy Maker!
Yeah, I think that escape could have been a little bit better plan, but at least we did, I think, manage to take care of the plant. And at this point, there is no way to get back into the monastery, so hopefully you made sure to do what you needed to before you threw in that arm. But yeah, without any other avenues of ways to go, all that's really left to us is to, scale upwards along the outside of the monastery here. The problem is, though, that we did manage to draw the ire of the plant inside, and thus decide to swing out some of its many tendrils to deal with us. For the most part, though, its vines are not really that difficult to deal with. I think they have at most maybe 6,000, 6,500 health. And even if we weren't wielding the best weapons in the game, we could still probably take care of them pretty easily. Especially if you have managed to build up any of the weapon leveling. As long as you can maybe get 2 to 3 hit combos, you can probably take care of them in maybe 2 to 3 turns. Also, as they are plant life, they are pretty susceptible to any type of fire magic. And with just the overall intelligence boosting and I think the cat's eye, even James here is not that bad of a offensive-based caster. Though there's really no comparing at this point to Koudelka and her mighty stick. And if you're wondering just what type of attacks a plant can do, well, they're leaf-based. They can be pretty damaging, especially when you have low piety. They also do have a poison-inducing whipping attack, though, well, there's no reason to even give them a chance to do it. All in all, they are just a very minor inconvenience from the death throes of this horrible plant. But they are extremely good for experience. I think they are just considered a boss, so they give boss-type experience. And they give rather unique items in the form of the idols. Now, if you did watch the Gargoyle video, you will know that the idol will give you a boost in a particular stat. I think it'll give you like +3 to a given stat. And well, I guess the developers might have been fearful that you might not have leveled properly. So, at this point in the game, even with just normal random enemy encounters that you might have out here, the enemies do have a pretty medium to high chance to drop these idols. So not only will you be getting pretty much the most experience you'll ever get in the entire game, but you might have a very good chance of getting just a straight stat boosting item. And that can be a bit worrisome, because that pretty much indicates that they kind of assumed that, well, you might not be ready for what's coming up. Though this isn't the dangerous part. Just another forced boss battle with some more tendrils from the tree. Though you'll notice in the back, there is a very unique vine. And in fact, that vine is pretty special. It's got a few, I think it's got one additional attack. And I think for some reason or another is completely invulnerable to, I think, both fire and earth-based magic. Not sure if there's a canon reason why that Patrick's Vine would require you to use water, but that is the only thing that it seems to be susceptible to offensive magic-wise. Still, there is something of a bit of dark humor to see his just dead body writhing around. It's like a cadaver marionette. And we have now finally released it from its grim dance macabre. Yeah, I guess maybe the reason that water was effective against it was some sanctifying element, almost like holy water. But yeah, at this point, I feel it would be really good to look back and realize that so very long ago, when we did get a full map of the monastery, we did see this entire area mapped out to us. It's rather interesting that they would decide to give us so many hints about what we would be running into in the future. Also, the keen-eyed viewer might have noticed there was an item we could pick up down in that previous screen, and Well, it was just some shotgun shells. Overall, just kind of in a rush to get away from this encroaching fire. And normally, even at this point, it would probably be best just to kind of run away from the fights. It's pretty easy to escape from any of the random battles. It's just, well, the random battles are still incredibly easy, even at this extremely high level. I think all the enemies, all like 20 types of enemies in the games, have about 3 difficulty variants, and yeah, at this point we are fighting the toppest tier. But all that means to us is a lot of very easy experience to get. And honestly, I'd recommend, if you were playing this yourself, by the end game, you probably maybe want to be closer to level 50 than the mid-40s. Yeah, sadly, even though it doesn't seem like a great idea, we have run out of scaffolding, so it looks like we're going to have to head back into the monastery. Where we have reached the very top of the tree, and what I would normally call almost a very lovely looking flower. Just something about this gives off a very, very large air of malevolence. Though we can't really investigate it from this side, I guess we have to go on, head to the front of it. And with that, it appears that we were too late to stop the ritual fully. Elaine, or at least whatever demonic force is possessing Elaine, is now very much awake and is very much after us. In fact, it seems to be as quick as it was in the cutscene and has already caught up to us. And to give pretty much the full indication that this is a very important boss fight, the game does manage to pull out a third music track for this particular fight. And overall, this fight is not that difficult. First thing to keep in mind, though, is that Elaine, for right now, is at least physically immune. So we are going to have to stick with offensive spells, and I think the wind spell is going to be the only one that isn't either completely useless or half damage against her. And for her primary means of attack, also to keep in line with the cutscene, it's pretty much that large-scale beam attack that Koudelka narrowly managed to ward off with the use of that pendant. Doesn't really do a tremendous amount of magic damage. I mean, considering that we are as far away as we possibly can be, we managed to, I guess, nullify at least some bits of it. The good news is that, at least right now, Elaine does not have a tremendous amount of health, or piety for that matter, so we can still, well, we can at least stun her for right now. we have definitely not defeated her. And in fact, the best thing we can do is just keep running. Now, what I find actually pretty interesting about all this is that over the course of the game, we have been given quite a number of hints regarding the fact that tonight would pretty much be the night that the ritual would come to fruition. I mean, there was the fact that whenever the gargoyle came to life, they mentioned it was All Saints' Day, and that seems to be the focal point of when the ritual should finish. There's probably a full moon, and there's the tolling of the bell. There was a lot of hints that, well, even though we did our best to try to stop the ritual, they were just a bit too late. And with Elaine's second form here, we do get the ability to do physical damage against her. Do not use the wind spell because that will heal her this time around. Instead, you want to try to use the earth spell, though it seems that she did kind of learn from the previous fight, and she does have a bit more in the way of piety and magic defense, so our spells are not going to be as useful. 600 is pretty piddly, and she still does have about 8,000 to 9,000 health still. Man, Koudelka even managed to not do 9,999 damage, so it's pretty good. And overall, it might seem initially like Elaine is really not that threatening. She only has that one attack, and we managed to defeat her pretty easily. There's just one slight problem. What we have been facing regarding Elaine up to this point has merely been just a larval stage for what has popped out of its chrysalis into this monstrous bug-like form that we see before us. And yet again, the cutscene is very indicative of the sheer power difference that this form of Elaine has in comparison to the previous form. I mean, we see just the physical damage or defense it can do alone. Pretty large and pretty large scale in difference. I mean, against most enemies, this is the most powerful weapon. Probably do about 3,000 damage per hit, and Elaine here managed to cut that in half. So for right now, we just want to start to buff up, Edward up at the front, make sure he can stay alive, because not only does Elaine have very high physical and magic defense, she is pretty strong in the offense department as well. Yeah, that previous primary spell that she would use before has almost tripled in damage, especially if we keep Edward there at the front, which we kind of want to do. And, I mean, it still managed to do 0 damage against Koudelka, but we really can't depend on her to be the only one that remains alive against those magic spells. So, at least for the first couple of rounds, what you want to pretty much do is maybe start to buff up your party, get ready for kind of a long haul. Because I think this boss has maybe 15 to 16,000 health, which is a very high jump from what we have fought before. I think no other boss has even broke the 10,000 health mark, and I think there's a pretty good reason why they want to make this particular fight so hard. And yeah, even though James does not have the highest of intelligence, his spells should still be doing more damage than that. Just, well, I feel like I've kind of been cheating you guys out of some of the fights previously by using Koudelka's offensive spells, since they've just been doing the maximum damage, so I'm going to try to hold back from, having her just completely nuke a lane for right now. Though it might have probably been a better idea that we did that, because yeah, if I had to arrange the difficulty of boss fights, this final form of Elaine would actually be above the gargoyle in difficulty just for that particular melee-based combo attack. I think, well, as you can tell, Edward has 9,000 health and the most amount of vitality of any character, and still managed to get hit for about 1,800 times 5. So, yeah, unless you have been pumping nothing but vitality for 55 levels, you're more than likely going to be one-shot by that attack no matter what. And we haven't really seen it before, but if an enemy does manage to flank a dead member of your party, there is no reviving them, so it's just up to James and Koudelka at this point. Elaine does have a couple more attacks, such as that needle attack there. 2,000, not too bad. I think I probably would have done like 4,000 if Edward was still alive. And at this point, I will admit, I am purposely throwing this fight for one very specific reason that we will be seeing somewhat shortly. And that is because there are multiple endings to the game, and those two endings are completely reliant on what you do during this final boss fight. And in fact, one of the things you have to do is going to be completely reliant on the fact that you lose the fight. Which really shouldn't be that hard against this extremely tough enemy, but I'm kind of over-prepared. Still, this should be our death.
Is this my fault? Do you blame me? Are you punishing me now because the path to my faith was tainted? I accept my fate. If it is your wish, then I accept my fate. He who has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to go into captivity he will go. If anyone is to be killed with the sword he will be killed. I am what I am. I am content with my lot. I have always loved you, Elaine.
Let's go home, James. Let's go home. I have such fond memories of those days.
No! Flames are coming this way!
Don't be silly. There must be something we can do. We'll be fine. Trust me.
In these crazy times, young people push themselves too much.
The sun came out. I prefer it a little hazier, though. Goodbye. We'll probably never see each other again.
Hey, your nickname. Slato? What does it mean? I haven't even asked you yet. Will you tell me?
It means treasure.
Oh, that's rich. I'll remember that. Treasure.
Is it okay, child, for you not to follow him?
Yeah, it's okay. I have a feeling that someday, somewhere, we'll meet again.
And, believe it or not, that very out-of-place ending is technically the canonical ending for the overall Shadowheart series. James is meant to die, and yeah, that was just a very out-of-the-way ending, especially that weird, I'm gonna say that was a sex scene, or at least the post-coitalness of a sex scene between Koudelka and Edward, which is, well, spoiler alert, they do have a child, and that child does appear later on in the Shadowheart series. But yeah, that's not really that great of an ending. Though I guess it's commendable the fact that they did put in an ending that required you to lose the final fight. That's super hard. Also, there's not really any explanation why James has the magical ability of faith to dispel this monster, as opposed to maybe Koudelka with her gypsy psychic powers. But it is now time to see the second ending, which we will get by defeating Elaine here, which is amazingly easy, with Koudelka being pretty much an uber mega death beam. We did manage to see the, I think, last attack that Elaine can do, in case you do manage to, I guess, line up all your party members next to each other. She'll do that fire bombing attack. But yeah, as long as you do not move towards her, she will never move towards you and do her massively damaging melee attack. So, about the best recommendation I can do for this fight, if you do happen to put in an attempt, just do not get near her, and you will be mostly safe, especially if you've been working up a healer. But for now, I think it is time we do our coup de grace and see the second ending.
I have seen the most interesting happenings. It would be a waste to go back to sleep just yet.
Hey, Koudelka. I wonder what she was about to say.
Dead people don't speak. It's just in your memories.
Huh? Is that how you explain what we just saw?
I guess.
Memories.
Somebody told me that after a loved one's death, all we have is memories. In these, we maintain an eternal bond with the dead.
And there you have it. What I feel to be, well, a much more rewarding ending, if still a pretty somber. I mean, all three of your party members do manage to survive. And, Koudelka probably feels better. Edward had an adventure that he was seeking, and, well, James was pretty much fucked. He lost a good friend of his. He lost the love of his life. His faith had been shook into his core, and he has pretty much questioned how he has wasted his entire life. Still, I don't really feel that either ending was that great compared to all the voice acting and the story for the rest of the game. But still, I want to commend the fact that this game was made. It went out on a limb to try to do something different. And for the most part, I think it worked. I think the story was great. I think the setting was great. The RPG elements were passable. It didn't wear out its welcome. The voice acting was obviously top-notch. As I think some people have pointed out, even the motion capture I think they did, and just the blocking, I guess, for the more theatrical cutscenes. All that was really great, especially for, well, the very first outing for this developer. I think some of the negatives that people have brought up, and I kind of share, is the music. At least ambient-wise, it was pretty minimal. Battle music was 1 or 2 songs, which was a bit grating. Especially, since I've had to play this for about 30 hours over the last month. But overall, a very rewarding experience, and, well, as far as I can tell, the rest of the Shadow Heart series just kept that going with overall interesting tone, setting, dark adult writing, just a lot of things that really made it stand out from pretty much most other RPGs on the market, especially console RPGs. So, hopefully you did enjoy this journey through Koudelka. I am glad that my first attempt at doing an RPG as a video LP worked out pretty well. I want to give a very large thank you to the love of my life, my lovely girlfriend who recommended this game to me. If not for her, probably wouldn't have done this. So, hopefully all of you lovely people out there enjoyed this journey through Wales and through terror and horror and all that lovely nonsense. And hopefully you'll join me next time as, I still need to figure out what to LP next. So, I will see you then.